This review's on the March 10 to 60 by 56 March X 34mm high master scope. Looking at the specs, you can see that this is a dedicated target scope. Starting with the click adjustment of 1/8 of MOA, this is really nice for targets because you can make super fine adjustments to your zero. I mentioned that in the last video on the 5 to 40. One of the things I didn't like about that scope is that the tenth of a mil adjustments were a little too rough for my liking when shooting at targets. This scope also only has 60 MOA of elevation and 40 MOA of windage adjustment. The windage adjustment's fine, but for air rifles, when you're shooting out at long distances, 60 MOA just doesn't cut it, and you really do need adjustable rings, adjustable 34mm rings, to really take advantage of this scope. If you've watched any of my other videos on the March scopes, you know how important I think a minimum of 10-yard parallax is. This scope, unlike the other ones, is exactly 10-yard minimum. All the other scopes actually would focus even lower than that. Also indicating this is a dedicated target scope is the 3 to 32 inch dot that is at the center of the reticle. There are very fine crosshairs, no holdover or windage adjustment marks. This is a reticle that's really designed for target shooting. The scope is not small, coming in at a little over 16 inches long. Although it is not a porker, it weighs just a hair over 2 pounds. So the turrets are really nice. They're particularly smooth on this scope. They're still really tight, going from click to click. You don't see slop. So let me wiggle them back and forth, and you can see that there's maybe what, a tenth of a click slop as I kind of wiggle them back and forth there. You can kind of see them moving a little bit, but they feel really nice. These are my favorite. So adjustment of the turrets on the 10 to 60 is different than the other March scopes. It still has the, both the elevation and windage are the same. You've got a nut here that needs to be twisted off. Now the difference is this is not free moving. And so what'll happen is, as I drop that on cue, you take the little nut piece out, and then there's actually 80 different marks on here. There's, you can adjust it to the nearest half spot, but it's not free rotating. So yeah, so now that's at 0. I rescrew this knob on. I prefer the grub screws on the other March scopes to this, personally, but they both work just fine. The zero stop on the March X is also different. There's a collar that tightens up around the turret to set the zero stop, and to loosen that collar there are two 1.5mm grub screws on either side of it. So you loosen those up, and then to set your turret, you turn it until it stops. Right there it stops. Then I would tighten up my grub screws, and that's where my zero stop would be set. On this gun, I don't like having a zero stop, so I put it pretty much all the way down to the bottom. I try to set it to where you'll notice it says up right, that's for the turret, and up left, that's for the zero stop. But if I have them, if I have this up and down where I can see it, it kind of confuses me when I'm setting the turrets. Just one of the small nitpicky things that irritates me about these turrets versus the other ones. So what I try to do is I just try to set the zero stop all the way down to the bottom it out, tighten it up, and I actually take a little black piece of turret tape paper like I do that I have on my parallax adjustment tape, and I pretty much just cover that up. My last nitpick about the turrets is the reference mark is way down here under the zero stop. Okay, and so I've got different color marks so I know which turn I'm on, but knowing exactly what click I'm on is sometimes difficult because these are 1/8 clicks. You go from half clicks, so I'm going to say that's exactly 3 3 1/8, 3 1/4. I'd rather have this line go all the way up and match closer to those lines just so I know exactly what click I'm on. Okay, so the aiming dot is on the very topmost line. Each of those squares is exactly 1 MOA, but the target's exactly 50 yards away, so it's going to take 2 MOA of elevation to actually move down one of those boxes to the next line. So let's see how accurate these turrets are. Right there, so there's 2 MOA of adjustment, should be 1 MOA, and that stupid plant is in front of it. It's alright, we need to do a lot more anyway. So, because these are 1/8 of an MOA clicks, it takes double the clicks. Okay, so that should have gone down to the third box. Looks like it did. Right there, fourth box. It's right on the line. Fifth box. Looks like it's right on the line. So long as it goes all the way back exactly to the zero, indicating that the gun didn't move at all, which is right there, we should be good to go. Oh, sorry, that was 4. Right there is the 0. Absolutely dead nuts. Perfect tracking. Love it. So this is the third test because the first 2 were inconclusive. The first one was short. Well, it was rich 1 click after 80 clicks or 1 complete rotation of the turrets. So then I retested it and then it was dead on. Then I retested it again and the test was unreliable because it seems like my scope moved a little bit when I returned it back to 0. It didn't return perfectly to 0. So this is technically my 4th test to see which of the prior tests was actually correct. Okay, so lost track of the count. There we go. Okay, that looks pretty good. 16 more clicks. Maybe a hair shy. 16 more clicks. Maybe not. It looks about as close as you can get if you look at the aiming dot. 16 more clicks. Actually looks dead on. And that's the last one. It's dead on. As long as it goes back, I'll trust the dead on one. Right there. Yep, dead on. Right on that line the aiming dot is. Perfect. Good job. So as you know, optical clarity is the premier reason to spend a lot of money on a rifle scope, and the March X Highmaster does not let you down in that regard. So the first thing we're looking at here is the edges of the scope. We're looking to see if there's any tunneling as we go from 60x all the way down to 10x. Also looking through the image to see if there's any distortion as you would move through the adjustment range, and as you can see, there is none. So as we start looking at some images taking through a Tacticam through the March Highmaster scope, keep in mind that the images you are seeing are nowhere near as good as what the scope is capable of. Aberration is added in, fuzziness, you're going to see just the image quality that the Tacticam is capable of is nowhere near what the High Master scope is capable of. And so it's disappointing, and I wish I had a better way to actually demonstrate how clear this glass is. So please rely on my verbal descriptions more so than what you're actually seeing. The reason I say that is the March High Master glass is the best glass in the world, in my opinion, and I know the images that you're going to see don't reflect that. I know German shot glass is supposedly amazing, but I just can't personally imagine it's any better than this High Master glass. High Master glass is made out of as close to pure fluorite as you can get and still maintain a lens that has strength and integrity. Fluorite is kind of special because it has virtually no dispersion, which is what causes chromatic aberration in the first place. So the fact that these lenses are made out of so much fluorite greatly reduces the amount of chromatic aberration and the fuzziness that you actually see in the image. So next you're going to see some images of a Punisher sticker that's about the size of a postage stamp and 103 yards from the scope. The weather conditions are just so-so. There's a lot of cotton floating around. There's some mirage. You'll notice that there's a tree in the lower right-hand corner with the wind blowing that really blurs things out a little bit. And of course, the low quality of the Tacticam camera is going to have trouble adjusting to the changing conditions here. But what you'll notice is that when you're looking through the scope, especially without the Tacticam, is that that sticker is actually crystal clear, especially when the conditions are good. I guess that's really the impression I want to leave you about this scope, is that the image you see through the scope is exactly the image, no better and no worse than you're going to see with the naked eye. And so if the conditions are foggy, well, it's not going to make things less foggy, or if it's dusty out, or if there's a lot of mirage, you're going to see that mirage through the scope. The bottom line is the image you're going to see through the March X High Master scope is probably better than you're going to get from any other rifle scope that you can buy. I've owned a few other Target rifle scopes, and my second favorite is the Vortex Golden Eagle HD 15-60 by 52. The Golden Eagle was one of the first Target scopes that I bought, and I didn't realize at the time how really difficult it is to have a clear image at such high magnification. So what kind of bothered me when I first got the scope was that I did notice quite a bit of chromatic aberration and fuzziness at the high 60 magnification. And what bothered me the most was how much darker the image was at 60x. And that's one of the drawbacks to this particular scope, is I don't think it has quite a large enough bell to let as much light in as the scope truly needs. The scope's reticle, however, did leave a lasting positive impression on me. I love a fine aiming dot, as you know, but this is the first scope that I'd bought that had the full top half hemisphere clear and empty for clear viewing. And I really loved that about this reticle. And I kind of gravitate to other reticles like the March MTR4 that are similarly clean. I bought my Golden Eagle used for $950, and to be frank, I had no idea that the suggested retail price was so much higher than that. In my mind, this was a less than $1,000 scope. If you can get one for less than $1,000, it is a true bargain. If your budget is less than $1,000 and you're looking for a Target scope, I would look for a used Golden Eagle HD just like this one. However, I wouldn't pay the retail price for this scope. If your budget is that close to being able to buy one of these at retail, you need to bite the bullet and get the far superior High Master glass.